Joining me live now to throw some light on how complicated these operations are and how things can, in many cases go wrong. People can get hurt. We have with us Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha. He's former Flag Officer Commanding-in-Chief of the Western Naval Command. He's a senior veteran aviator, someone who's spent decades in the Indian Navy. He's commanded the Western Naval Command, under which many of these ships operating right now in the Gulf of Aden would come under. So he knows everything that anybody can possibly know about what these operations entail. We also have with us Captain D.K. Sharma. He's a former spokesperson of the Indian Navy, and he's been in charge of communicating and talking to the world about such operations in the past. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time here on India First. A great sense of pride talking about the Indian Navy, conducting these complicated operations. Admiral Sinha, coming to you first. Many warships of the Indian Navy now deployed, offshore patrol vessels, destroyers. This decision was taken last month, especially in the wake of attacks from Yemen, etc. But these anti-piracy patrols are proving to be, coming thick and fast. 3 such rescues happening in just 3 days, sir. What do you make of it?
Well, thank you, Shiv, for getting me on your program. It's been a long time.
Yes.
I wish to mention to your viewers that Navy at sea never sleeps. And I mean it very literally, because when the ships are sailing, they are on duty 24/7. One watch always remains on duty, and they keep taking rounds in those 24 hours. So every 6 hours, duty comes back. Now, it is from 2008 onwards that we have been deploying our ships for the anti-piracy mission, when it first sort of raised its hand. And since then, our ships have been on patrol in the Red Sea and Gulf area every day, and they have escorted more than 5,000 ships and vessels from the Red Sea into safe zone. Many ships, many hijacking attempts have been sort of thwarted, if you like.
Yes.
In fact, Indian Navy was the first navy in the world to sink a pirate ship which was becoming a threat to it in 2008. Coming back to this, yes, you're right that of late there has been an increase in the number of attacks which are taking place. I find there are just one reason, that because of the Houthi attack on the ships in Red Sea, the pirates have raised their hand thinking that under the garb of these Houthi attacks, they can make use of this time when the ships are slowed down to do some piracy act, either on big ships or even on small ships.
Yes.
And there has been an increase. And I think the reason is the Houthi attack, number one. And secondly, obviously, there is a money required, as ransom, which they have not succeeded so far. So, because of this double tasking, the Navy increased the numbers of patrol aircraft, ships to about 8 to 10. They have also increased the, the patrol period of our P-8I aircraft and the MQ-9, the drones.
Yes.
And the results you have already mentioned. I need not repeat it. Another thing I want to mention, that as per the United Nations Convention of the Laws of the Sea, to which most of the countries in the world are signatory, a right of innocent passage is to every seafarer who is out at sea.
Yeah.
Now, it does not recognize as to what is the nationality. No. A seafarer, if his seafaring is for public good, it has to be protected by any ship which is in the vicinity whenever the ship is under distress.
Yes.
It's a law, and we abide by the law. And we do it for the cause of the world, for public good, for global commons. We are not doing it for any sort of very personal thing at all. No.
Correct.
Navy follows the laws. It abides by the law and acts in according with these laws.
And this is absolute professionalism that is shown by the Indian Navy.
Absolutely.
And it would never think of doing anything less. I want to explore that theme a little bit more because like I said, one of the reasons why this story has garnered greater attention is because this fishing vessel happens to be Pakistani. Captain Sharma, if I could come to you, I'll come to the nationality aspect that Admiral Sinha touched upon, but you have dealt with such issues in the past. You've told these stories to a very interested public in the past about how the Indian Navy has conducted these missions. But these are very risky missions, aren't they, Captain Sharma? Things can easily go wrong.
Well, it is a very, very tricky situation where you have the pirates on board these small fishing vessels, and they do carry very, very sophisticated small arms, which means AK-47s and the likes. So the ship which goes for a rescue, for example, in this case, Sumitra, they have to first send a helicopter, which gives them adequate warnings that now you are being, prodded or being stopped by INS Sumitra, and they have the report, or they tell them that they have a kind of information that this is illegal act which you're doing. So please come out on board to a clear area, and please keep your weapons to the side. So this is the kind of intricacies which are involved, because these are very, very heavily armed people, and they can cause harm, and a loss of life is absolutely not acceptable.
Yes.
So that is where the complications arise. So the ships, normally the ship which is carrying out this duty of rescue, has to be very, very careful, and it has to be a very, very graduated kind of action which the ship takes, and make sure that there is no harm to the bona fide crew of the boat.
Right.
And this is how it is progressed. That is why it takes a little bit of time, 3, 4, 5 hours. And once the pirates or the people who have boarded the fishing vessel illegally, then they are brought to the clear area, and then the ship normally sends a boat in which we have our armed boarding party.
Yes.
And which goes and renders the boat or the hijacked craft safe, and then they take charge of these pirates, and then send them back to wherever they have come from.
Okay, and I'm glad you answered that question, because people have been asking me, especially through the day, what happens to these pirates? So, you've got that picture of the pirates being arrested by the Indian Navy Marcos, but what happens to them later? I'm glad you clarified that. Admiral Sinha, since these were Pakistani crew members, everybody's interested. These are complicated issues, because India and Pakistan have a troubled relationship otherwise, but like you said, at sea, there are no such distinctions. This is professional protocol and duty. I'm wondering, sir, from the top of my hat, don't such acts of humanitarian help, ease diplomatic relations between countries? We just saw, those 2 Pakistani locals sort of thanking India. At the official level, does this smoothen things out a little bit at some level between countries?
Well, it is taken note of, Shiv. But it's very difficult for the type of governance system that you have in Pakistan for them to officially accept this. But I'm sure that, through the track 2 or some channels, they would certainly, in their own heart, or maybe to some agency, they will say that thank you very much. And this is not the first time, Shiv.
Yes.
If you recall, there was a merchant ship which was hijacked by the Somali pirates, and they were kept, prisoners on board the ship. And it was an Indian Navy steered action in which there was a Pakistani citizen and rest were Indian citizens. He was actually flown out from there, dropped at Salalah, and handed over to a Pakistani embassy gentleman, who later flew him back to Pakistan.
Yes.
So this has happened before, and whether they thank you or not, the political angle is quite different, because the primarily army is in command of the foreign policy.
Yes.
And whether they accept it openly or not, but I am sure that people out there, our impression amongst the people obviously goes up quite high.
Very, very interesting. Captain Sharma, would you like to add to that? Pakistanis being on board, how does it really make a difference later?
You see, it is a humanitarian cause. they have put out a kind of a distress call that they are under a kind of attack and they need help. So these things are not taken into consideration, that who's the nationality, which part of the world the boat belongs, or which part of the world the crew belongs to. First is to render help, which has been sought by them on international open frequencies. These things are not considered at that point in time, and neither is that vessel which is being approached or which has been hijacked by them is of a belligerent nation. So it is to protect the sea lanes of communication and the economics that these kinds of actions are taken.
Well, all I would like to end this discussion with is by wishing all of our sailors and officers on board all of these ships, Shano, Varuna, and safe hunting, safe operations, because clearly, like Admiral Sinha so rightly said, there is no sleep for our men and women out there. So we wish them the very, very best, and we will continue to report and put the spotlight on such stories. Admiral Sinha and Captain Sharma, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time here on India First.